Hello guys, welcome to the next part of this Mercedes Sprinter van conversion. We've got quite a way through all of the first fix now. All of the cabling has been pulled into the van. We've done all of the insulation, we've put the new flooring down, and we're pretty much ready to line the van now and start looking at furniture board. So in today's video we're going to be looking at some samples and some ways in which you can trim your furniture board with a couple of different options. When we were deciding what we wanted to do with the furniture in our van, the one thing we were sure about is we wanted it to have a production look, like a professional finish to it. I love a lot of the campers that we see where people have used recycled materials, and they're very quirky, and I think that look is brilliant. But for our particular camper, I wanted our van to have this sort of professional furniture look. So we did a lot of research and looked online, and we came across this company, Morland. They manufacture these 15mm lightweight ply, and they seem to be one of the companies that has a really fantastic range. If we look in their catalogue here, you can see they do a vast number of different finishes and colours. There's various trim options, and there's a huge selection to choose from, so you can really have whatever style and colour you want in your van. Now these are a lightweight plywood. It's a 15mm ply panel. They typically come in 8x4 sheets, and a typical sheet of this lightweight ply would only weigh something like 26 kilos. So I know weight is a big factor when we're doing these van conversions, because typically these panel vans don't carry a lot of weight. So wherever we can reduce that, it's going to help. And this is going to make a massive difference. If all our furniture is made from this lightweight ply, that is going to reduce that weight considerably. If you go onto Morland's website, what you can do in their online shop, instead of purchasing the materials, there's an option there to order a sample. So we went onto their online shop, had a look right the way through their range, and these are the samples that we've selected for our Sprinter. Here we can see we've got a maple, this is an ash, pecan and a cherry. These are veneer samples, however you will get a proper manufactured 15mm ply board. These are just purely samples, and then there are a couple of smaller samples of the actual ply here. This is a grey Zebrano and this is a Driftwood, and we were really torn between these particular two panels. Having been to the NEC Motor Show, and we've got some great inspiration from there, we looked at all of the caravans and motorhomes there, and what stood out for us is a lot of the motorhomes that have got like a high gloss finish do look really professional and really top class and very high quality. So I think what we're going to go for is we're going to go for this Zebrano, and we're going to go for a high gloss finish. When we were at the motorhome show, we actually took the opportunity to nip across to North Wales and go visit the factory. They've got a showroom there where you can see the samples for yourself. They're extremely kind, very welcoming, and actually let us into the distribution part of the warehouse so we could have a look at some full-size sheets. And that gave us a really good view of what the finished product is going to look like. One other thing that their sales office did for me, which I really appreciate, is send me a couple of samples of these trims. Now the traditional way to trim these furniture panels is to router a slot in the edge of the panel and then use this T-shaped PVC push-on trim, and that would then push into that slot that you router, and that would finish off the edge of your board. The other alternative is to use these iron-on edgebanding strip. This has got a glue on the back. You'd use a hot iron, you'd place this edgebanding on the edge of your ply, apply heat with an iron, and then trim off any excess. And this will give you a nice square edge on your board. You don't have to round the corners off like you would do with this PVC trim, and you can have your cupboard doors and drawers can have square corners. So if you were just going to create a face frame cabinetry and then have your doors and drawers meeting with a small gap, this would probably be the way to go. So what I want to do with these small samples of trim, I'm actually going to take the router bit, I'm going to cut a router slot in this 15mm ply, I'm going to apply a piece of this PVC strip, And then on the other side of this sample, I'm actually going to iron on one of these edge banding strips. Trim that, and then we can compare the two and see which one we prefer. I purchased a special 3mm slot cutting bit for the router. This ball bearing will ride on the edge of the wood, and the teeth on the cutter will cut a 3mm slot right the way down the middle of this board. The one thing that we just need to make sure in the setup is we just need to make sure that we've got it absolutely spot on to the middle of the board. Let's get the router set up and let's run that slot. So what I've got here is I've got my little trim router. I've got this slot cutting bit now fixed into the router, and then what I've done is I've adjusted the depth so that that cutter is exactly on the centre of this 15mm board, and then the ball bearing will ride on this bottom edge as we run it through this piece of wood. Okay, let's just cut this slot. There we go, that was really easy to cut. Obviously this is a brand new cutter, it's extremely sharp, but this lightweight ply cuts really easily. So there we can now see we've got our groove perfectly centred on our board. And what we'll do now is we'll take this bit of PVC trim. I'm actually going to cut it to length first, and then we're going to push that in. So with this utility knife and this scrap bit of wood, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure this for length. I'm just going to mark it. And then I'm just going to cut that. And maybe could have done with a sharper blade. There we go. Right, and then just remains to push this into place. There, that pops in there nice and easy. And there you can see there's our slot. Our trim is pushed into the slot. It's got little barbs on there which will hold on to it so it won't come out. And then it's got a little lip on both sides, so it just covers that edge. So it finishes off that board really nicely. Okay, so we've got our old iron here. It's a second-hand iron. This is not my partner's best iron, I will admit. We've used it for a number of projects, as you can probably see by the state of the bottom of it. Don't put any water in this at all. You want it on its highest setting, as high as it will go, but you don't want any steam. It's up to temperature, it's nice and warm. This strip is a little bit wider than this furniture board. We're going to put it on so there's an even overhang on both sides, and then once we've fixed it to the edge of the ply, we're then going to come back in and trim off any excess. You want to keep the iron on there for a reasonable amount of time so it activates the glue, and then just apply firm level pressure. Just make sure that it's stuck on there. I just like to just run along the edges. I'll let that cool down, let that glue just go off, and then we'll come back in and trim these edges. You do have to be a little bit careful because when the glue starts to melt, it does have a tendency to slip around a little bit, so you do need to make sure that it's still on the edge of your board. There are a few ways that you can trim off this laminate, but a couple of the best ways is with a broad chisel or with the blade out of your planer, and just run it along the surface with a slight sort of cross cut action, because your chisel always works better when you're using it almost like a knife really, rather than just pushing straight into the piece. Just use a little sawing motion, and there we go. And then what we'll do is we'll really fine bit of sandpaper, we'll just run along that edge just to tidy that up. There we go, that looks really good. It's nice and clean. Flip this over. We'll do the same with the other side. Come in here with a little sawing action. Notice I'm pushing inwards, I'm not pushing outwards, so I'm actually sort of forcing the strip onto the board. I'm not forcing it away from the board. There's that iron-on edge strip, trimmed off nicely both sides. What we can do, like I say, is just run a very fine bit of sandpaper on this edge just to take off that sharpness. But that's finished that board off really lovely. I'm really super impressed with that. I mean, that's given that such a clean finish on that edge. I do like this traditional PVC trim, but now I've seen this iron-on trim, I think we might use a combination of both of these on the van. I might use this PVC trim for some of the larger panels, and then I think the doors and drawers I may well trim with this iron-on edge banding, and that way I can finish all of my drawers and door fronts square, and I don't have to round over that edge. So there we go. I'm really pleased how that came out. Please let me know in the comments below which of these two edge trims that you prefer if you was using this lightweight ply for your van conversion. I'm also going to put a poll on my Facebook page and invite you to vote on which one that you think is the best. I'm really looking forward to the furniture part of this build. Obviously, as some of you know that have been with me from the beginning of this channel was primarily started out as a woodworking channel. So I'm really looking forward to getting back in the workshop and using some of our tools to build these cupboards. If you've got any questions on anything that you've seen, please do leave me a comment below. I'll always make sure that I get back to you as soon as I can. I've had some absolutely amazing comments from all you guys, and I can't thank you enough. I'm really pleased that you're enjoying this van build series, and I hope you continue to enjoy the future videos. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers!